Okay. This is it's a kind of an update. Okay, 2 months ago. 2 months ago, I went to the doctor. Um, I didn't have a family doctor at the time, so I just made an appointment at the clinic and went in. My right breast was starting to get red bumps, and so I went in and I did blood work and made an appointment for an ultrasound and a mammogram. And so I did blood work. And then the next day, she called me in and said that my blood work shows that my sugars are really high. She said my sugars were at 22, and my 3 month sugars, which is um, A1C, she said that was at 12. And but I didn't feel any different. Like I no fluctuation in anything. It was just I just still felt normal. But so wait, when I went in the day before and talked to her about the red bumps, um, she mentioned, C, and she asked me if there's any family history, anyone in my family with it. And I said my grandmother had it back in the early 70s, and my sister had it not quite 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. But that's all I know. That's it. And so the next day when she called me back in about my blood work, she told me about the sugars. She never said anything about red blood cells, white blood cells. Like she never anything about anything. All she told me was about my sugars. That was it. Um, I went for my appointment for the ultrasound on my breast and the mammogram, and she called me in a couple days later, and she she said stage 5. Now, I've never heard of stage 5, but that's the word she used. That's exactly what she said. She says it's stage 5, and so I asked people, what was stage 5, and this is before I even had a biopsy. This is just an ultrasound and mammogram. That's it, and nobody heard of a stage 5, and so I was told what it could possibly be is advanced stage 4. So that's what I was going by. And after I went to see a dietitian because, with my blood sugars high, I had an appointment. I went to see a dietitian, and I told the dietitian about this, and she didn't know. And I told her, I says, well, yeah, I says, she told me that it's stage 5. And she says, I've never heard it. There is no stage 5. And I says, that's what she said. And she asked me, she says, did you go for your biopsy yet? And I says, no. I says, I says, I did last week, but when she told me about this, I hadn't gone for it yet. And she says, a doctor cannot tell you a stage before they even do a biopsy. And I said, that's exactly my thought. That's exactly my thought. And then she says, maybe she meant category 5 from the mammogram. And I says, no, she was talking about C. And I said she used the word stage 5. Right? I said she used the word, she said it's stage 5. And so that's what I'm going at. And so anyways, from the time I got the results of the blood work 2 months ago, was told about the sugars and everything, I totally changed my eating lifestyle. I don't eat the same as I did before. I just loved to eat. I loved food, no matter what it was, you know. Sure, good meals, good healthy food, stuff like that, but I also had junk, you know. Go to the city, go to Wendy's, Burger King, whatever, you know, have pizza, just chocolate bars, pop, just whatever, right? I just eat whatever, anything. But ever since that 2 months ago, right from that day, I totally changed my eating lifestyle. I haven't had a chocolate bar for 2 months. I haven't had a can of pop for 2 months. I had a little piece of McCain cake yesterday because I went to dinner at my daughter's place and I bought everybody a cake, just a little thing. So, I mean, a couple times, maybe about 3 times in 2 months, I had a little treat, but that's it. Like, I don't crave, I don't want to eat crap. I want to eat good, and I have been eating good. Lost a lot of weight, but yeah. But anyways, so I did go for my biopsy. It was called an ultrasound biopsy, and that was on February 3rd. On that day, they handed me a piece of paper. This is at the hospital. This is in Saskatoon. They handed me a piece of paper and said, here's your appointment paper to meet your surgeon on February 19th. So I said, okay. So February 18th came around and we had a big snowstorm. So they had called me and said, you know, the roads are horrible. Don't come into Saskatoon, because it's an hour and a half drive for me. Just don't come into Saskatoon. It'll just be a phone appointment. And I says, yeah, but doesn't she need to see it? Like, it, red bump, solid bump, solid, and scabby and bloody and just sore, sharpness. But anyways, this was the 18th. I said, doesn't she need to like see it? She said, and the receptionist says, well, she told me to call you and tell you it just did a phone appointment. It's like, okay. So the next day, the 19th, she called me and she told me that, she says, you don't need surgery. No, actually, when I first answered, she says, I suppose you already, I suppose you don't really need me to tell you the results of the biopsy. Like that's what she said. You don't really need me to tell you the results of the biopsy. And I says, well, I kind of figure. And then that was it. She didn't say anything about results, didn't say anything about nothing on the biopsy, anything. But what she did say was, you don't need surgery. Medicine will fix this. And I was like, are you sure? I said, are you sure? I says, I had surgery to remove a lump like 5.5 years ago, and it didn't look anything like this. And it was like, I kept saying, are you sure? And she says, yeah, she says, you don't need surgery. Medicine will fix this. And I kind of, I got a little emotional and choked up, and I says, I don't want to die. And she said, you're not going to die. Medicine will fix this. And it's like, okay. And she said that a doctor in Regina at the cancer center has decided to take me on. And I was like, oh, okay. I go, okay. And she says, you don't need to come to Saskatoon anymore. Because Saskatoon is where I went and I did the imaging. She says, you don't need to come to Saskatoon. You can do everything in Regina at the cancer clinic, cancer center. And I said, okay. And she says, okay, so I'll put in for it today. I'll put you in for it today. I said, okay, I guess she needed my permission to say about this specific doctor. I don't know who it is. And he said, okay. And that was the 19th of February. Today, well, it's just after 10 of March 9th, so tomorrow's March 10th. So, and they called me last week. I waited and waited and waited and waited, and the cancer center finally called me last week. And they said that, they said when they get an oncologist, they'll call me for an appointment to come in for a CAT scan of my chest and a bone scan. Okay. That was a week ago. I'm still waiting for that. And that's just to come in for the scan. That's not... This is... Man, if you seen my breast right now, you would be like, holy, it's like, what is taking these guys so long? You know, it's been 2 months. It's been 2 months. And all I had was a couple imaging. Like, if I had, you know what, if I can, hold on. This is just a piece of it. I'm going to show. That's just a piece. That's just a piece. My whole... And the scar that I got from 5.5 years ago at the side is seeping. Because there's a hardness there. There's a hardness there again, and it's seeping. But anyways, it's been 2 months. It just feels like I'm getting the runaround. It feels like they don't even care. That's what it feels like. But I'm asking you guys to pray. Pray. I was at work today. Today I worked 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I guess it was around, or sometime around 5, I looked down. I was wearing a t-shirt and a sweater, zip-up sweater. And I seen blood from my sweater. It was a thick sweater. I was like, what? And I unzipped the sweater, and there was a big circle of blood on my t-shirt, on my shirt. It's like, I'm in the waiting game. And it seems to be getting worse. But nothing happening. I'm asking you guys. I know people have prayed for me. I've sat down and people have prayed over me. And people have prayed on social media, on my TikTok. There's people that was doing the live, and they've prayed for me on their live. There's been people that pray for me, but I'm asking, please don't stop. Please don't stop. This is the first time that I've cried like this. 2 months. Like, I know God's helping. I know He is. There's been so much to say that He's helping. And I gotta keep my faith up. But what's getting me upset like this is the feeling that the doctors just don't care. It's like they don't care. And that's how I feel. The one doctor I went to 2 months ago even lied. Like, she put on the sheet for me when I went to go for my mammogram. The lady said, so it says here that 4 of your aunts had cancer. I said, what? I says, that never came out of my mouth. I says, when the doctor asked me if anyone in the family, I said, my grandmother and my sister. I says, I don't know where she got 4 aunts from. But, and that's, plus she told me that I was in stage 5. Like, so, I feel like I'm getting the runaround. I feel like no one's listening to me. almost feel like I don't know. I just feel like it's been 2 months and I don't know anything more than what I did 2 months ago. I still haven't even, on the 19th, the surgeon, when she says you don't need surgery, medicine will fix this. Oh, it's been almost a month since then. Another week will be a month. And where's the medicine? Where's, everything is being put off and put off and like, why is it taking so long? I keep bleeding, I keep. Please continue to pray. Please. I love you guys. Always. Always. You know that.